This is WNYT, Albany. Ed Dague, Chris Kapostasy, meteorologist Herb Stevens, and Bob McNamara on sports. This is the 30-Minute News.
Good evening. Chris has the night off tonight, and we'll begin our report with two decisions made today on the national and international level. The vote on Judge Bork certainly was no surprise, but the announcement by Mikhail Gorbachev was. When Secretary of State George Shultz met with Gorbachev today, many expected Shultz would announce a date for a summit between Mr. Gorbachev and President Reagan. But the Soviet leader told Shultz today he is not yet ready to come to this country and won't be until President Reagan makes some concessions on Star Wars.
The signals were misleading. Gorbachev welcoming Secretary Shultz to the Kremlin with jokes, telling Shultz that if he joined a labor union, he would get shorter working hours. Then, most misleading of all, Gorbachev told a reporter he thought there would be a summit in the U.S., although Gorbachev said he might not be able to see the entire United States. The 4.5-hour session that followed was supposed to iron out final details of a treaty banning medium-range nuclear missiles. Gorbachev had said he would go to the U.S. only to sign such a treaty. But it turned out that Gorbachev wanted more, American agreement to limit research on President Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars. A somber-faced George Shultz made the announcement.
Mr. Gorbachev, as it emerged, is apparently not yet satisfied, particularly in the area of space and defense.
Later, Foreign Secretary Shevardnadze gave the Soviet side.
In preserving the peaceful nature of outer space, unfortunately, the Moscow negotiations in this decisive field were not able to achieve progress.
John Cochran, NBC News, Moscow.
President Reagan today said he still holds out some hope for a summit, but that he will not compromise on Star Wars, and last night the president tried to explain why.
A real defense against nuclear weapons can be the biggest factor in hopefully one day making those weapons obsolete.
Well, NBC News quoted administration sources today as saying that Secretary of State George Shultz and arms negotiator Paul Nitze have both tried to convince the president to change his mind about Star Wars. As expected, the Senate today shot down Judge Robert Bork's hopes of sitting on the Supreme Court. After today's vote, New York Senator Daniel Moynihan said he wasn't voting against the man, but rather against his record.
It was a clear decision, 58-42, and I hope it would not be taken as a judgment on Judge Bork's character. It was a question of how do you read the Constitution. Most of us had a different view.
The spokesman for the Justice Department tonight said it is likely President Reagan will name a new Supreme Court nominee by the end of next week. White House Chief of Staff Howard Baker said no decision on a nominee will be made, though, until after a presidential consultation with Senate Democrats and Republicans. With us now to talk about the Bork nomination is our political commentator Ned Pattison, who you might recall told us about 3 weeks ago that Bork would not be confirmed for political reasons. You said that night, Ned, and I'm curious what you meant by that.
Well, Ed, I saw the process as being essentially political, and that doesn't mean that it's correct or incorrect. It merely says that that's the way we do things in this society. And if democracy or the American political system is the notion, or at least the suspicion, that by and large, decisions made with based upon a foundation of free speech and free press and universal suffrage comes up with at least tolerable decisions. And even if they're not tolerable, they are at least correctable. That's the way we do things in this society. By and large, historically, it's worked out better than any other system that I know of, and that's all we have.
Well, was Bork turned down because he's politically, and I mean in a political sense rather than judicial conservative, or an extremist?
I don't think any of those things. I think it's a whole combination of things. But I tell you, when you see someone like John Stennis from Mississippi, who is retiring, he's announced his retirement, he's a conservative, and he voted against Bork, I don't think you can say that Bork was too conservative for the Congress or for the Senate. I think that there was a perception, a whole bunch of perceptions, a certain amount of arrogance on his part, kind of a know-it-all attitude that he had. Some personality as well. part
Can you
looks to a certain extent.
tell me in about 10 seconds, on Monday, the stock market crashed. Whose political stock went up and down among the presidential candidates?
Well, in general, the Republican stock goes down if it persists, and in specific, Bush's stock goes way down if it persists. But quite frankly, I don't think it'll persist, and I don't think it will harm or hurt anybody.
You told me earlier you're not sure this is permanent. You had a wonderful line. I wonder if you repeat it for us about the ability of the stock market to project recession.
Well, that's a quote in this era of Joseph Biden. I better quote Paul Hohenberg, who says that the stock market has correctly predicted 9 of the last 5 recessions.
Ned, always a pleasure. Thank you much for joining us tonight. Have a good weekend. Wall Street, which we've been talking about because the week began with a bang but ended with a whimper today. The market was up only 1/3 of a point, though. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 1950.76. Volume today just under 250 million. Normally a heavy trading day, but especially so in light of the fact the market closed 2 hours early today. The worry now is what will happen next week, and many on Wall Street were not reassured by President Reagan's words last night. The totals for Wall Street this week, somewhat astonishing. The net drop since Monday, nearly 300 points. The number of shares traded this week, 2,295,520,000. Still to come tonight, 30-minute news. In Rensselaer County tonight, the tables were turned for Sheriff Warren McGreevy. We will have that story as soon as we come back. 16-year-old Greenport youth is behind bars right now, charged with second-degree murder in connection with a fatal car accident in Columbia County. 46-year-old Richard Bashford was killed when he was hit by a car last month. Bashford was known by friends as the Troll. He was often seen walking along county roads collecting cans. Well, police now allege that the youth intentionally jerked the steering wheel of a car in which he was a passenger.
And through investigation, it was determined that the 16-year-old youth intentionally grabbed the steering wheel and caused the car in which he was a passenger to strike and kill Richard Bashford as he was walking along Route 9.
Jeffrey Ham is the name of this youth, in Stockport Town Court today and then sent to the Columbia County Jail. The two candidates for sheriff of Rensselaer County faced each other in a debate tonight, and for the incumbent, Bill Lambdin reports it was sort of a case of role reversal.
Warren McGreevy was in his sheriff's uniform, a uniform he won 3 years ago. But still, he was in a new role tonight, forced to defend himself under the attack of Republican challenger Robert Schneeman, who criticized McGreevy's management of the Sheriff's Department and Rensselaer County's ancient, decrepit jail.
The lack of direction, goals, and objectives with that jail is a red signal to indicate that something should have been done about that jail a long time ago in this administration. Not just telling people, hey, the place is bad, it's falling down, tell me what to do.
McGreevy was embarrassed in 1985 when then-murder suspect Ronald Sampson was able to saw his way out and stayed at large for several days. A guard was fired after the escape but could get her job back through the grievance process. McGreevy's employees have filed dozens of grievances and won a recent arbitrator's award over pay, but the Democratic incumbent was making no apologies.
The time has come for my opponent to recognize the tremendous accomplishments and progress made in this department under my leadership. I put an end to this mismanagement, the mistrust, the corruption, and the tolerance for incompetency that existed in this department.
Just as it was 3 years ago, the unifying issue here was the performance of the incumbent sheriff, now Warren McGreevy. Under McGreevy's description, very capable, or under Schneeman's, inadequate. Bill Lambdin, the 30-minute news, Troy.
Also in politics today, a Republican presidential hopeful kicked off his New York State campaign. Congressman Jack Kemp drumming up support for his campaign and saying he's in a battle with the Republican establishment. Kemp disagrees with President Reagan's ideas on how to stabilize the stock market. Last night, Mr. Reagan hinted he might negotiate a tax increase to reduce the federal budget deficit and to stabilize the market. Lou Lehrman, former Republican candidate for governor, will co-chair Kemp's New York effort. An instructional manual for teaching school children about AIDS was approved by the Board of Regents today after a rather spirited debate. The Regents decided to accept the guide by a vote of 10-2 only after it was revised. Some Regents wanted to downplay the use of condoms to prevent the spread of AIDS. They preferred to emphasize abstinence from sex as a way to prevent getting AIDS. That discussion, though, came to an end after a comment by Chancellor Martin Burrell.
But to sit and cavil at every single word in the face of this plague is, I think, dancing while Rome is burning.
Again, these are guidelines. The local school boards will have the final say as to what is eventually taught about AIDS, and parents can have their children sit out of such classes if they choose. Ahead, 30-minute news. Herb will be here in a minute with the tales of what is looking like it's going to be a pretty promising Saturday. So the weather with Herb, and I think we have nailed this down, and I had some questions last night. Herb knew, and you were right, that we get an extra hour's sleep tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
We go back to Eastern Standard.
Eastern Standard Time at 2 a.m. You set the clocks back. Of course, you're going to set your alarm to get up to do that at 2 a.m., I'm sure.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Sure.
But we get an extra hour's sleep tomorrow night, and I know for one, I'm going to take advantage of it.
We'll need it after a day of raking.
A lot of people will be in the yards tomorrow, because tomorrow looks like the better of the two for the yard work, so there'll be some fresh air being inhaled tomorrow and some good sleeping going on tomorrow night. Looks like tomorrow is the winner as far as the weekend is concerned. We'll get to that in just a moment. Let's take a look at the almanac first of all. The high today was 56, the low 31. Right now we've got partly cloudy skies, 43 degrees. Not that chilly tonight. 35 is the dew point. We have a southerly wind, a rising barometer, and we've had just a trace of rain at the Albany County Airport. We had a few sprinkles just before sunrise this morning, and that was about it. Now let's go take a look at the temperatures around the Northeast, and you'll see that they're in the 30s and the 40s for the most part. Actually, 4 spot in the state, 37 degrees at Elmira, the warm spot, as you might expect, New York City at 54. In northeastern New York and across northern New England, there are departing clouds right now, and they're taking what showers are left with them. For the rest of us, it's clearing out and it's cooling down, but it's not going to be as cold as it was last night. Let's take a look at the satellite picture. First of all, at 5 o'clock, we were still cloudy in eastern New York, and I was thinking we were going to clear out pretty dramatically by tomorrow morning. That process is underway, as you can see as we look at the 10 o'clock satellite picture, but it's going to be a slow process. There's still a fair amount of moisture trapped in the lower layers of the atmosphere, so we're going to see more starlight as the night goes on, and tomorrow we'll have a good amount of sunshine. Now, the clouds you see over the Great Lakes, these also are breaking up, so we're going to have a bigger dry area by tomorrow morning. That's why I'm optimistic about the sunshine, but the next cloud area out here in the western Great Lakes, that's zipping right along, and that's got our name on it for tomorrow night and just part of Sunday. You can see there's not a lot of precipitation associated with that cloud mass, and what you see here is in the form of snow, but we don't have to worry about that. Strong jet stream will zip things along right across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast through the weekend. Before I talk about our future, let's talk about some contrast. First of all, in the Northwest, it's too dry. Yakima, Washington, which is right down the street from Mount St. Helens, they haven't had any measurable precipitation in 96 days. It's over 3 months. There is rain, however, in parts of Southern California, and that's a problem where there were forest fires this summer because the land has been defoliated. Sets up a situation where mudslides are a problem, and they are going to have problems with that over the weekend. Corpus Christi, Texas, too wet. They've had 5 inches of rain today, and they've had quite a bit of flash flooding, and some roads have become impassable. Now, for our future, tomorrow's the World Series game, so let's talk about the lineup for the weekend. First of all, number 1, low-pressure system taking clouds out of here. It's just about done with. Number 2, high pressure. Nice day coming up tomorrow. That'll get out of the way. And then comes along number 3, or number 3 comes along. That comes zipping right along. It's got a lot of snow with it now, but for us it means rain showers, and that will come in late tomorrow night and continue early Sunday, but it too will move right along, get out of the way, and Sunday afternoon looks pretty good. Big difference between number 1 and number 3. Number 1 weakened when it went through New York today. Number 3 is going to strengthen as it approaches, so there'll be more showers tomorrow night and early Sunday of the first system. Let's take a look at the details of the forecast. Tonight, patchy clouds and cool, 33 to 38. No problems. Tomorrow, a nice day, a mixture of clouds and sunshine, light winds, mild temperatures. Get out and do the work. Thickening clouds. I almost said sickening, but the thickening clouds tomorrow night with showers after midnight, 42 to 47. Sunday morning, showers, but then the skies brighten in the afternoon. And it's going to get cold again as we start early next week, but it's going to be dry and quiet first half of next week.
I like that 1, 2, 3. It's connect the dots weather.
Connect the dots weather, yes. It's for simple minds like mine. You get simple by Friday night.
I understood it. I'm in deep trouble. Thanks, sir. You might know the deer hunting season with the bows and arrows is now underway. It will continue until November the 16th. What you may not know, though, state officials are trying to get more deer hunters onto the trails and into the woods. Officials at the Department of Environmental Conservation say there are about 50,000 more white-tailed deer this year than last year in New York State, and the DEC is trying to sell more doe permits to reduce the doe herd. Those permits allow hunters who have already shot one buck to shoot a second deer of either sex. Coming up next, World Series preview, pro hockey, and lots of local football. Sports, football, a big night for it, of course, Friday night, and the biggest game of the year, in fact.
Yeah, to date, no question about it, Eddie. Two suburban council powerhouses. Shenandoah undefeated and the leader in the blue division against Bethlehem Central, once beaten and on top in the gold division and with its best team in years. Rodger covered it.
Mac, as this season continues, Mike Giroux continues to be one of the area's most consistent running backs. And tonight against Bethlehem, he scored the game's only touchdown in the first half and once again rushed for over 100 yards as Shen shut out the Eagles 11-0. Defensively, Coach Brent Stewart-Wald's team didn't make many mistakes against the Wishbone.
We had one big play against us when a safety slipped, fell down, the kid broke to the post and had about a 60-yard run to set up that scoring opportunity. Other than that, we really did a good job of containing him.
Following the reception by number 33, Peter Koza, Bethlehem had it first and goal from the 7, but Rod Casper, number 17 here, made the big hit and forced the turnover. Shen wins 11-0. Roger Wyland, 13 Sports.
Thanks, Roger. At Bleecker Stadium tonight, CBA of Albany got a nice game out of quarterback Brian Dunn with a 9-yard touchdown run here on the sweep option and beat Burnt Hills 30-7. And Mr. Dunn again, 13-yard scoring pass to tight end Jamie Farnham. Tyrone Seabrooks also had a sweet game. He rushed for 143 yards and a touchdown. No end to this kid's talent. You should see him play basketball. At Heritage Park tonight, Waterville put on an awesome ground show and stampeded LaSalle 42-0. That touchdown by quarterback Kevin Legault. And another ground score, this one by Captain Steve Kunker. Cannoneers just wore them down and blew them right out of there. Final again, Waterville 42, LaSalle nothing. Waterville 6 win in 7 games. Elsewhere, Albany High 19, Catholic Central 6. Brian Flowers hit Bayder twice, and Colony beat up on Guilderland 38-14. Elsewhere, Columbia 15, and Niskayuna nothing. Clewell to Boulier twice. And Albany Academy 20, Mahanason 8. Whitey Herzog, who doesn't want to play a 7th game in the World Series, rolls out his ace. Left-hander John Tudor tomorrow against the Twins and Les Straker at the Metrodome. This will be a rematch of Game 3, where Tudor picked up the win by going 7 strong innings. But Straker pitched pretty well himself in that one. In fact, he had a shutout going when they lifted him after 6. If the Twins should win tomorrow and it goes to a 7th game, Whitey would pitch Danny Cox on 2 days' rest. Cox got the win here last night, and he looked good, but the Twins, remember, creamed them earlier under the dome. Tomorrow ought to be interesting. Game time, 4 o'clock. Well, the red-hot Chicago Blackhawks, after their 6th straight win tonight against the hard-to-figure New York Rangers. What happened was incredible. No other way to put it. 24 seconds into the game, Ulf Dahlin hit on a spinning rebound of a Willie Huber shot. Then Walt Podubny connected as Kelly Kissio drew the defense and sent him a very nice pass. Then Marcel Dion hit, redirecting a shot by Huber for his 699th career goal. And 54 seconds later, Patrick laid a sweet pass right on the stick of Thomas Sandstrom, and he drilled it right over Darren Pang's shoulder. Wow! Rangers score 4 goals on their first 8 shots of the game on the way to a 7-3 win. Absolutely incredible. Elsewhere in the league tonight, New Jersey 5-3 over the Islanders. Buffalo beat Montreal 5-3, and it was Detroit 5, Pittsburgh 2 in the American Hockey League. Look at this. Had to happen sometime, right? Binghamton 7-2 over Adirondack. Wings first loss. That's it, Eddie.
Okay, thanks, Mac. And don't throw away, don't clean out your closet.
Okay.
Because we're going to show Mac how some of those old polyester threads he made famous in the area have become the decade's Dacron duds. Finally tonight, about 10 years back, you loved to hate them, but then came the end of the Dacron decade, and now polyester shirts are considered works of art.
They are now considered artifacts of the 70s, these printed polyester shirts collected by Jeff Eric.
There's also the slogan that says the 70s never happened, and these shirts prove that that's not true.
He's collected 500 shirts, 200 went on display at San Francisco's Museum of Modern Mythology. Their wild designs trace the history of art, from cave painting to Jackson Pollock, maybe. There are shirts with outer space designs, sporting designs, and cartoon designs. And at the opening tonight, there were many men of the 70s willing to admit they wore polyester printed shirts to the disco, men like Jack Mingo.
The men started showing their true inner selves by wearing shirts like this, and the result was that most people said, ew, and kind of backed away, so we went back to a relatively conservative dress in the 80s.
Polyester is a fabric that can be printed on easily. The shirts were colorful, but with drawbacks, says Paul Durand.
It doesn't breathe, as they say, and I'm not into sweating anymore.
But nobody would admit buying one.
I think probably my mom bought it for me when I was a kid.
It is said that few women ever wore printed polyester shirts, but then again, why would they want to? In San Francisco, I'm Carl Sonkin for NBC News.
Well, that buttons it up tonight. Thanks. I could go on, but I won't. That's it for the week. We'll be back here, all of us. Chris will return come Monday. Joe and Rodger. Norm's not back this weekend, is he? No. Okay. He's recuperating. We'll see you Monday. Join the weekend crew. Have yourself a great weekend. Good night.